Hi team, welcome back to our Introduction to Canadian History Anchor Fact series of printables and mini lessons. We have seen that Canada became a country on the 1st of July, 1867. Sort of. On that day, which is celebrated as Canada Day by Canadians, the remaining British colonies in North America became the Dominion of Canada. The question we began to answer in our last video is a Dominion a country? And the answer was yes and no. Yes, from that point onwards, Canada had its own parliament, and Canadians could create their own laws for themselves. But now we get to the no part of the answer. The proof of that comes with World War I, which began in 1914 and is the next of the anchor facts of Canadian history. We need to brush up a little bit on what World War I was. It's another example of how important European history is to the history of Canada, and a reason why you should be looking forward to the Anchor Fact series on European history. World War I was started when an Austrian archduke named Franz Ferdinand was killed by a terrorist in Sarajevo, which is today in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Back then, it was in Austria-Hungary, a strange two-part empire that was swallowing up much of Eastern Europe. What does this have to do with Canada? Well, Austria-Hungary and its neighbors Germany and Italy were in an alliance called the Triple Alliance in Central Europe, pushing towards war. And Russia, France, and Great Britain were part of an opposing alliance known as the Triple Entente. When Austria's neighbor Germany decided to get involved to support Austria after the death of Franz Ferdinand, it started a general war, with France and Russia coming under attack. This forced Great Britain into the war as well. But again, what does this have to do with Canada? Well, Canada was still a dominion of the British Empire. This meant that when Great Britain declared war on Germany, Canada was automatically involved in the war. Every part of the British Empire was automatically involved, including Australia, New Zealand, and even India. When you're inside of an empire, you don't have a choice about your foreign policy. What's that, you may ask? A foreign policy is the way you act towards the governments and people of other countries. An independent country gets to decide how it acts in that way. Today, when the United States decides to go to war, for instance, Canada decides whether or not it will join, and sometimes it does not. In World War I, Canada did not have the power to decide. As far as making its own laws was concerned, Canada was able to do that. But as far as deciding how to relate to other countries, that decision was made by Britain, and Canada had to accept it. This is the reason why the answer to the question, was Canada truly independent, is yes and no. So Canadians joined World War I and made an important contribution to the war. Canadians have always had a strong reputation for their contribution to the world ever since this terrible conflict. They contributed to Germany's defeat in World War I. They contributed to Germany's defeat again in World War II, and since that time, they have been involved in every effort by the United States to protect Europe through NATO, and to protect the world by being a part of the United Nations peacekeeping force. They also helped the United States in the modern war on terror. Even though Canada is not a big country in terms of population, it has made an outsized contribution to keeping the world a safe and peaceful place. In Europe, there are special places dedicated to Canadian war heroes who fought in the world wars, and Canadians are highly respected for what they did in all the wars since World War I. But ever since World War I, there has been one crucial difference. Canadians obtained yet another reward for loyalty in World War I. They obtained the right to decide for themselves if they would help or not. More on that in the next lesson. See you then.